That's the funny part about this whole situation was you think to yourself, one t-shirt that's probably worth what? $5 maybe? Something, $5, $7. That's how they sort of, it's a bait, like a bait and switch. They hook you in using the bait of the t-shirt, and once you're in, they've got you for like $500 plus whatever interest keeps going. If you're a good payer, unlike how I was, if you're a better payer, you'll probably get increased premiums. You get an increased amount every month, and then it just starts to get out of control. So in the end, just to be part of U of T just by getting a credit card doesn't really make sense. The whole concept, it's sort of like an advertising that they play on your emotions, some emotional purchasing. I think getting this credit card was very similar because there were posters, images, and ideas and concepts that made you feel you will be a better student, more a U of T, a great U of T student if you get a U of T credit card. But essentially, the credit card has nothing to do with your experience at the school. In fact, getting into more debt, especially being a student that already has student loans, actually sours the experience of university, ironically enough. You could say, I did it to myself, or the student did, which is true, but if the school would promote it in a more positive light, by informing people more so, it would definitely have worked a lot better, I think, for a lot of us, for a lot of students. I feel that the idea of getting a credit card at your school is very misleading. Like I said, not only about the emotional aspect, but why many times majorly unemployed students who are already getting student loans would be offered. And they're so young and naive. When you're 18 years old, you're not thinking about all of the restrictions, the guidelines, the consequences that could evolve from misuse of credit cards, because to some extent they can be used for powerful things, to build up your credit so that you can buy a house, a car, that you can even, phone lines for that matter. If you don't have good credit, you can't even get a phone line, all sorts of things. But at the same time, if you abuse it and misuse it, which younger people are prone to because this is their first experience with this type of thing, they're not even explained how the concept of interest rates work, yearly payments, even the dinging on your credit reports. Everything is sort of hidden in this big mist of it saying you'll be a better student and this and this and that, which is all a charade to me. So I feel universities, for them to be responsible, should not offer young students credit cards, because I think it's leading them down a path of debt instead of a path towards achieving their dreams and following their goals financially through using the education they're earning, rather than getting themselves into debt. I think for future reference that if these schools are to continue these credit card programs, they should really, first of all, it should be mostly for employed students, I think would be a big thing. I know some people may think, well, employed students wouldn't exactly need credit if they have the purchase, but in order to build up their credit and their portfolio, I think it's important that if they begin with the credit card, start off on the right foot. They should have an advisor, perhaps designated by the school, standing nearby to at least explain, to give you a very unbiased point of view of credit cards, both the advantages and disadvantages, and to explain to you how the payments work methodically every month, how the compounding of interest, which a lot of people don't understand, grace periods, and those sorts of things, in order to give students a better objective of what they plan to do. As they could use the credit card for something very good as well as something very destructive, I think it gives them a better perspective on how to do it. So having an advisor nearby, as well as having a more visible document. You know how sometimes when they print out some stuff, it's so hard to see the fine print, as they say, you read between the fine lines. If they were to make this more obvious for students and really educate them and explain it to them how things work, I think they could make much more informed choices on the basis of avoiding debt and having a more productive education without these sorts of nuances nearby. But if they are to continue the program, if they were to have the advisors, I think it would be very fair. Because I admit that a certain level of it is self-responsibility, but also students have the right to know the objectives of the cards and the positives and negatives of it. Well, the last bit of advice I could possibly offer in regards to credit cards and post-secondary students would be inform yourself as much as you can about the basis of these cards. Compare interest rates. Find out which are the best deals. Understand the concepts of balance. compounding rates. Feel free to compare and contrast the different banks, the different cards that are offered. Don't feel yourself just pressured by your peers or by some sort of image that dictates you will be a better student, you will be a better individual if you were to get a credit card or some sort of thing. A credit card, like I mentioned before, can be a powerful tool in a positive and negative sense, all depending on how you use it. But it takes a certain level of maturity and education and knowledge in regards to the aspects of the credit world in order to use it constructively. So I feel people should inform themselves and get rid of the stereotypes associated with free t-shirts and making silly mistakes like what I made with the idea that a t-shirt could positively affect your future or your image, when in the end, like I said before, it could just so as much tarnish somewhat that positive experience of getting that post-secondary education when you're stuck at some dead-end job potentially at the end of your education, still paying off that free t-shirt, quote unquote, which ended up adding to thousands of dollars potentially in the future. So knowledge is the best key.